Alright, Quackers, what takes had you up all night? Yeah, well, let's figure out if that is a foul take or just a foul one, because it has had an enormous impact. The origin of the love triangle. To be fair, the Hunger Games love triangle didn't come out of nowhere. After the success of the Twilight series, Suzanne Collins' editor nudged her more in the direction of adding romantic tension, because in the late 2000s, nothing sold books or movie tickets quite like teen angst. Not war, not trauma, romance. Now, Collins has said that she wrote both Peeta and Gale to represent different worldviews, competing worldviews that Katniss would need to navigate throughout the story. And while we will be taking a closer look at both ideologies and what they might mean for us, that's not what we're doing today. Instead, today we're going to be looking at interpersonal damage masquerading as romance. Specifically, we're going to look at entitlement and the emotional labor that we often end up carrying in the name of love. Honestly, this is one of the most damaging parts of the story, not only for Katniss, but for us as readers. Because, as Lisa from Fundamentals puts it, Katniss is made to feel like she owes the boys who want her. Despite the fact that Katniss cares very deeply for both Peeta and Gale, neither boy puts her feelings first, at least not initially. Instead, she ends up being responsible for their desires, their survival, and their self-worth. But let's be real, that's not a love triangle, that's coercion, pretending to be romance. And it's not okay. Let me show you what I mean. Katniss's feelings on relationships. From the beginning, Katniss has zero interest in romance. Not because she's cold or immature, but because she's busy trying to keep her family alive and fed. But it's more than that. In her mind, love leads to marriage, marriage leads to kids, and kids get reaped.
Primrose Everdeen. I volunteer as tribute!
Every time she thinks about the prospect of getting married, the thought of children immediately follows, and it always fills her with dread. I'm never gonna get married anyway, and he'd just end up hating me later instead of sooner. That if I do have feelings for him, it doesn't matter, because I'll never be able to afford the kind of love that leads to a family, to children. Rather than reckoning with the fear that's simmering inside of her, she sort of deludes herself into believing that no one cares or is romantically interested in her, which is obviously not true. But we all already know that. Laying out the relationships. We're introduced to Katniss's best friend Gale in the first chapter of The Hunger Games. Hush, save it for the Prim Reaper episode. And it is very clear from the beginning that Katniss cares a lot about Gale. In the woods waits the only person with whom I can be myself. Gale. She explains throughout the series that her relationship to Gale was born out of desperation and a begrudging respect because each had the knowledge that the other needed. Because both of their fathers died in the same mine explosion, they were both left to be the breadwinner. Maybe not breadwinner, the provider for their families. And from Katniss's perspective, their relationship was that they hunt together, they trade together, and they support each other. As Katniss says herself, there's never been anything romantic between Gale and me. But starting in chapter 1 of The Hunger Games, it's pretty clear that Gale is not on the same page. Before the reaping that lands her in the 74th Games, he half-jokingly suggests to Katniss that they run off into the wilderness together because they could make it. He even suggests that he might be open to having kids if they didn't live in District 12. And Katniss finds this whole interaction entirely bewildering. And how could she not? She didn't know that he thought of her as anything other than a hunting partner and a friend. But Gale admits in Mockingjay that he actually had a crush on her since like about 6 months before the reaping. That same reaping where they were having this conversation. You were in the Hob, eating some slop of greasy says, and Darius was teasing you about trading a rabbit for one of his kisses, and I realized I minded. But he doesn't address his feelings towards her until long after the games, and long after she had any say in her own romantic choices. Then there's Peeta, the boy with the bread, the sacrificial lamb.
If you die, and I live, I'd have nothing.
The lifelong admirer.
I watched you going home every day.
A story for another episode. When Peeta's name is called in the reaping, Katniss isn't happy about it. She felt like she already owed Peeta a debt she could never repay, because he was willing to take a beating so that he could throw her some bread when her and her family were literally starving. She was on the brink of death in his backyard. Later, when she was trying to decide whether or not she should thank him, and he made eye contact with her, she looks down and sees a dandelion, which actually led her to the forest that then opened up a lot of resources for her and her family to get food, like hunting and foraging and all that. So he's ultimately the person that helped her survive, not just in these books, but long before they even started. As we learn in the games, Peeta has had a crush on Katniss since they were about 5 years old, and has not said a single word about it. Instead, he just kept an eye on her. I've turned in the school hallway and caught his eyes trained on me, only to quickly flit away. Once his name is called in the reaping, Peeta seems to throw his lot in with Katniss immediately, offering friendship and support and encouragement from the moment that they're asked to shake hands after his name had been called. Peeta and their team all sort of develop a strategy to do their best to ensure that Katniss returns to District 12, which at first glance looks really noble to us as readers. But let's take a moment to actually think about how this experience must feel to Katniss. Peeta announces his feelings for her, not to Katniss herself, but to a national audience on TV.
Well, there's this one girl that I've had a crush on forever. But I don't think she actually recognized me until the reaping.
Well, I'll tell you what, Peeta. You go out there and you win this thing. And when you get home, she'll have to go out with you. Right, folks?
Thanks, but I don't think winning's gonna help me at all.
And why not?
Because she came here with me.
And Katniss is justifiably furious. After pushing Peeta, which she should not have done, she confronts Haymitch. And this was your idea, wasn't it? Turning me into some kind of fool in front of the entire country? I answer. It was my idea, says Peeta, wincing as he pulls spikes of pottery from his palms. Haymitch just helped me with it. A pause here to reiterate that this strategy is Peeta's idea, one he is entirely aware of, and the conversation continues primarily between Haymitch and Katniss. He made you look desirable, and let's face it, you can use all the help you can get in that department. You're all they're talking about, the star-crossed lovers from District 12, says Haymitch. But we're not star-crossed lovers, I say. Haymitch grabs my shoulders and pins me against the wall. Who cares? It's all a big show. I'm gonna stop us again at this point to acknowledge that Haymitch is having this conversation in front of Peeta, in front of their team, likely in front of the game makers in Snow based on what happens in the earlier games, but who knows, we have no confirmation of that. And this conversation continues. Cinna comes over and puts his arm around me. He's right, Katniss. I don't know what to think. I should have been told so I didn't look so stupid. No, your reaction was perfect. If you'd known, it wouldn't have read as real, says Portia. Here's the thing. I know that Cinna and Portia are new, right? This is their first year being stylists within the games. But I think they might have forgotten what it's like to be a teenager. You can even mention that they might have a crush on someone and they will blush. It was not necessary for her to go into this not knowing what was going to happen. But the team and Peeta all choose to keep her out of the loop, writing her story for her. Her narrative in the games for her. She didn't get a choice. But no one acknowledges that they've stolen her autonomy in this situation. Instead, Peeta sort of dismisses her sensitivity to having been put in this position by saying, she's just worried about her boyfriend. With that simple sentence, he dismisses her very real, very valid feelings because he thinks that she's upset because she's already spoken for by another man. Ew. I don't know who needs to hear this, but that is misogynistic. And what we see in this whole interaction is that Katniss is talked down by all of the people who are there to help keep her alive. While it's clear that they think that they're doing this for her own good, they are actively silencing her. Peeta and Katniss have two entirely different experiences in the 74th Hunger Games. Peeta, love-struck boy that he was, dedicates himself to making sure that Katniss gets out the arena, right? His whole goal is to make sure that she survives these games. He joins the career pack and even fights Cato to protect her. Katniss, entirely unaware that his feelings may in fact be real, pretends to be in love while they're in the arena, and the strategy allows them both to come out alive because she plays the girl so madly in love that she couldn't live without her beau. She pulls out the nightlock, and they basically suicide pact their way out of the arena.
Stop! Stop!
Despite being aware of the pre-game exchange we talked about a little bit earlier, where they all kind of agree that the star-crossed lovers is the approach that they're going to be taking to the game, Peeta seems to have forgotten that Katniss believes that their relationship is an act, and that she doesn't know that his feelings may actually be real, and that she's just kind of following along with Peeta and Haymitch's plans. He seems to be completely oblivious of all of that. Instead of being happy with their success, he is instead heartbroken by the realization that his feelings weren't reciprocated. So what you're saying is these last few days, and then I guess back in the arena, that was just some strategy you two worked out? Honestly, this interaction is bewildering to me. What do you mean, some plan you two put together? Dude, are you serious right now? It was your strategy your whole team agreed on that you initiated. This should not be a surprise to you. I don't know. What are we even talking about right now, right? So, at no point did anyone talk to Katniss about how she felt about it. She was not asked for consent. She wasn't asked to choose anything. It just happened to her, and somehow his disappointment is her fault. She managed to hurt his feelings despite the fact that they were all on the same page when this started. Through the way that this situation is described, it is clear that we're meant to sympathize with Peeta. But with a closer look, Peeta's interactions are not loving or compassionate. He puts Katniss in a situation where she cannot safely say no, not socially, personally, or politically. And that is a relationship foul, my dude. Now, back to Gale. After the games, Katniss and Peeta go back to District 12 and move into the Victor's Village. Katniss is traumatized and grieving and struggling to find a new normal. After weeks of waiting for all the cameras to leave and to make sure the coast was clear, she ventures out into the woods hoping to reunite with Gale, and they have a pretty normal hunting day. And you get the sense that she's relieved that maybe some part of her life will go back to normal. But she's disappointed to learn that there is no going back, because what does Gale do? He kisses her without asking, because, quote, I had to do that, at least once. Not because she invited it, not because she was ready, but because he wanted to. And this non-consensual kiss becomes ammo for Snow to use to drive Katniss even further into her PR relationship with Peeta. And once again, Katniss ends up paying the price for the decisions of a boy who she cares a lot about. With both the in-world and real-world explanation for the love triangle, we need to take a closer look at what's going on between Peeta, Katniss, and Gale, because they are fully fleshed out characters with thoughts and feelings, and it's pretty messy. Number 1, love doesn't equal consent. I can already hear the comments. But Katniss always loved Peeta. And fair, right? She does spend a whole paragraph talking about his eyelashes. And she spends about a paragraph talking about how much she how much she trusts Gale's strong, capable hands. It is clear that she has deep feelings for both of these boys. That's not the point. The point is that even if she does love them, it doesn't make the way that they manipulated her okay. And it doesn't erase the entitlement they both seem to feel towards her. And it certainly doesn't absolve them of them making her responsible for their feelings. Number 2, managing everyone's emotions. Katniss spends a lot of time in these books managing the emotions of others. Her mom, Prim, her prep team, and most importantly, Peeta and Gale. As Lisa from the Fundamentals explains in her post, The Hunger Games is not a feminist masterpiece. Peeta's and Gale's actions and sometimes their words suggest that Katniss not being into them is her problem, not theirs. Something that she is doing wrong, which isn't really uncommon for teenage boys, or grown men for that matter. Unfortunately, Collins had a chance to challenge this viewpoint with The Hunger Games, and instead, the storyline reinforces it. And this video that we're in right now, this is our attempt to challenge that dynamic and to call out what it means for both Katniss and us as readers and viewers. Because frankly, it's easy to overlook this dynamic because we see it play out in books and movies and real life all the time. In The Hunger Games, we see Peeta sulk because Katniss's feelings don't match his fantasy. And we see Gale lash out because she won't choose a side. And we see the Capitol force her into this fairy tale nightmare that she can't seem to escape. And no one, not a single person, asks her how she feels. How is that not concerning? 3. Katniss can't win. After Snow's visit, where he challenges Katniss to convince him that she and Peeta are madly in love with each other, and they struggle on their victory tour, she really leans into their relationship and suggests that Peeta asks her to marry him. Of course, Peeta agrees, but he sort of stalks off to his room, and again, Katniss is confused. Haymitch's explanation? Pretty simple. He just wanted it to be real. And of course he did. But Katniss also wanted her choice of who to marry, or if she wanted to get married or not, to be real. And they both sort of gave up those choices when they marketed themselves as the star-crossed lovers of District 12. She never got a choice in any of this. And the moment that Peeta is asked to give up some of his agency, he's crushed by it. The double standard is a bit galling. 4. Peeta grows. But these dynamics aren't all bad. To his credit, Peeta does come to recognize that his expectations of Katniss are unfair. On the train for the victory tour, he actually apologizes to Katniss for his reaction after the games. He takes a deep breath. Look, Katniss, I've been wanting to talk to you about the way I acted on the train. I mean, the last train. The one that brought us home. I knew you had something with Gale. I was jealous of him before I even officially met you. And it wasn't fair to hold you to anything that happened in the games. I'm sorry. There's nothing for you to be sorry about. You were just keeping us alive. But I don't want us to go on like this, ignoring each other in real life and falling into the snow every time there's a camera around. So I thought if I stopped being so, wounded, we could take a shot at just being friends, he says. I'm still gonna side-eye how he construes her relationship to Gale as romantic when she hasn't made any claims like that, because it still kind of comes off like he won't listen to her about her own feelings. But he does recognize that he put her in an impossible position in the games, and he commits to working towards an authentic friendship. And I think that that's amazing. This moment between Peeta and Katniss is crucial because it models accountability for entitlement. And frankly, we don't see anything like that from Gale. Why this matters? Listen, stories teach us how to see relationships. They shape what we think love looks like. When a dynamic like this goes on unexamined, that one person is expected to carry the emotional weight of the desires of others, we start to accept that as normal. I know I did. Growing up with some pretty toxic relationships modeled both in real life and in media, I didn't know how to safely navigate other people's feelings. In my 20s, I often responded to declarations of affection by trying to manage the other person's feelings rather than asserting my own boundaries or expressing my own needs. Just like we see Katniss do time and time again. On the flip side, I have also shared my feelings and expected them to be reciprocated simply because I was brave enough to be vulnerable enough to share them with the other person. I honestly thought that being brave meant that I deserved the other person's love and attention. But let's be real, that's not love, that's entitlement. If you're going to put yourself out on a limb and share your feelings with another person, you have to accept the fact that the risk of rejection is very real. It is always a possibility. And that's hard, especially when you're young, especially when you've been taught one way or another that being honest enough to share your feelings should be enough to earn someone's affection in return. And that's the problem with framing the Hunger Games as a love triangle. It doesn't acknowledge that what we're really seeing here is entitlement. Love does require courage, but it requires more than that. Love and relationships are actually sort of like sex. Both parties have to be enthusiastically consenting in order for the relationship to be healthy. Despite what we've been seeing in the media for decades, it's not cute to wear someone down or to manipulate them into being in a relationship with you. When we present one-sided love as inherently noble, we teach people to expect something in return just for feeling deeply. And worse, we teach people to believe that they have to protect others' feelings more than their own. And we learn to call emotional labor loyalty. We learn to call boundaries cold. And we learn to call pressure passion. And those lessons stick, especially for anyone still trying to figure out what love looks like. To be clear, this video isn't canceling Peeta, and we're not villainizing Gale. It's about recognizing what really happened to Katniss so we can stop pretending that this dynamic is romantic. So we can ask better questions and build better relationships. Because making someone else responsible for your feelings isn't love. It's harmful. So, back to the take. The Hunger Games is just another love triangle teen drama. That's a foul if I've ever heard one. As we've covered today, Katniss's relationships are complicated and messy. She clearly cares a lot about both of these boys, but I doubt she would have waded into romantic territory if they hadn't forced her into it. But what do I know? I'm just a silly goose. Let me know what you think. Is this a foul take? And definitely share your favorite Everlurk moments with me. Already back on Line Quackers? Can't wait to see what you bring us next week.